Well, everyone, happy Halloween and welcome to number 1. Before we talk about who I think the best Final Fantasy villain is, however, I think it's time we acknowledge a few of the villains who almost but didn't quite make it on the list for one reason or another. Everyone, give a round of applause for our honorable mentions.
Fashionably late, I see.
Arden.
Insomnia, the crown city of my kingdom. I bid you a warm welcome.
I understand completely that a lot of you are going to disagree with me on this, but I stand by it. Not only did Arden leave a bigger impact on me personally than any other villain, but he's the best in my eyes because while Kefka was the best villain with certain aspects, Arden checks the most boxes of any of the villains on this countdown. Long before the events of Final Fantasy XV, a plague known as the Star Scourge spread across Eos, turning many people into demons. Arden Lucis Kylum was a member of the royal family who possessed powerful healing abilities, and he went about relieving the suffering of many by containing the plague inside himself, along with a lot of demons. However, when the time came for him to ascend to the throne and gain the blessing of the Astrals, he was deemed impure and corrupt due to containing the Star Scourge within himself, and his brother betrayed him and ascended instead. Due to the demons within him, Arden became immortal and was already furious by his perceived betrayal, but could only watch as his name was demonized and wiped from the annals of history. Now going by the surname Azunia and working alongside the Niflheim Empire, he plans to enact his revenge on the royal family and the world by not only unleashing the Star Scourge, but also by destroying the current king, Noctis, and making his life a living hell. Let's start with his appearance. I love Arden's design. Apparently his look was inspired by Al Capone, and it shows. He looks equal parts like a snazzy gangster and a hobo, making for a really cool aesthetic, and his scarf managed to homage Sephiroth without being too on the nose about it. That and I'm just a sucker for fedoras. His theme music is appropriately sinister and his voice acting is excellent. His personality is a lot more subdued than, say, Kefka or Kuja, but it's no less entertaining or intimidating.
For a moment I felt death's chill wind. Such is the might of the gods. But then I remembered I'm immortal.
Every word that he says gives off that really cool, if I wanted to kill you, you'd already be dead vibe, even before it's revealed just how evil he is. And he's also a huge troll, being cryptic and vague on purpose just to confuse and frighten people. He knows completely how much he creeps people out, and he clearly loves doing it. He doesn't really dive into the ham as often as some other villains, but he steals every scene he's in. Like I mentioned last time, Kefka is comparable to the Joker, but Arden is closer in style to the Riddler, relying more on trickery and manipulation. Don't get me wrong though, he's just as cruel as Kefka, but just in a different way. To borrow another comic book analogy, Kefka is sort of like Carnage, while Arden is like Venom. Both of them are just as powerful and just as evil, but whereas one of them kills and destroys indiscriminately, the other aims it all squarely at a single person. It's astounding how effective a villain can be if they focus all of their efforts to screw over a single person. He kills pretty much all of Noctis' loved ones just to give him motivation to seek the powers of the royal arms, and then actively helps him just so he can kill him when he properly ascends and finally put an end to the Lucian royal family. Later on he uses
the magic of illusion
to switch places with one of Noctis' best friends, Prompto, tricking Noctis into nearly killing him. A lot of other villains have employed
the magic of illusion,
but they've never really been used to this extent. Once Noctis does begin unlocking his latent powers, Arden no longer has a reason to hold back. He blankets the world in eternal night and swarms the world with demons, even transforming all the residents of the Imperial capital into demons just for the heck of it, taking the time to mock Noctis over the PA system as he makes his way through.
Betraying your friends for the greater good, the mark of a monarch. Step forth, your majesty.
Once Noctis finally does arrive to confront him, Arden does nothing but screw with him. He surrounds his lair with a force field identical to the one around Noctis' home city that Arden destroyed just to rub it in how Noctis couldn't stop him from killing his father. And just as one final kick in the teeth, he dangles the corpses of all of Noctis' deceased loved ones from the ceiling of the throne room. That is a level of sadism rarely ever seen from this series. Kefka may have gotten more done, but Arden's brand of chaos is a lot more personal and emotionally charged, and therefore more effective. But the main reason I see Arden as number 1 is because he exemplifies the best aspects of all of the best villains in the series. Like Kuja or Gaius, he has a backstory that makes him sympathetic despite the scale of his atrocities. But like Ultimisia, the specifics of said backstory are left up to interpretation. It's a pretty good balance that adds an element of mystery while still giving you a sense of what makes him tick. He has the charisma of VIII, the constant hanging presence of Sephiroth, the dark comedy of Kefka, and the pettiness and horrific nature of Exdeath. Also of note is that while Sephiroth may have had delusions of being a messiah figure, Arden actually was that messiah figure and he got screwed out of it. Capping all of this off is a final one-on-one fight that, while it isn't really the best fight in the series and may have some mechanical issues, but it's one of the most unique final battles in the series. He doesn't get a fancy transformation, just a really cool one-on-one duel where he has demonic counterfeits of all of Noctis' abilities. And a lot like some of the other villains on this list, even in death, he basically gets everything he wanted. Only time will tell if he has the same impact on the series that Kefka or Sephiroth had. I mean, 15 is only a few years old. But even now, Arden is one of the most well-remembered aspects of this game. He'll be the gold standard for Final Fantasy villains going forward. He exemplifies everything I love about villains. And again, you might disagree with me, but I stand by my decision to rank Arden Azunia as the best villain in all of Final Fantasy.